What's going on, Reject Nation? Greg Alba here.
And John here.
So we just watched The Mummy 2017 edition starring Thomas the Cruise.
TC's back in action, running a lot of places, doing a lot of stuff.
I don't agree with Rotten Tomatoes at all. I was surprised by how great this film is.
Yeah, I walked in expecting one thing, and I didn't get that thing, but you know what? It charmed me a lot along the way for some reason.
Yeah, I felt like the whole film was... I can't do this.
I can't either. I was like, that's the most wooden I've delivered a line in a long time.
No, this film is definitely problematic.
It's problematic. See, okay, here's the thing. I might not give it 18%. I might give it something...
I give it like a 40.
Yeah, I was thinking like 48, so maybe, you know, like it lost...
Really? 48? I'm like somewhere between like 38 to 40.
If I'm being friendly, it's a 40. If it lost me or it lost you, I would go, like 38, 42 range.
Yeah. Alright, some positives about this film. Tom Cruise is the best part of the movie. I felt like, even when I was bored at times, Tom Cruise can still keep me entertained. Like, I noticed that in the first half. Like, when he was on screen, I was being entertained. He's committed to this movie. It's not like watching Jack Reacher Never Go Back. He seems like he's really invested in this film.
I'll give that to the man Thomas the Cruise. No matter where he shows up, even if I did at one point kind of roll my eyes at this movie being like, Tom Cruise, really? Like, and as much as you do focus on Tom Cruise, he does seem like he wants to be there. Like, he shows up, he brings his A game, and he bothers to play a character that is Tom Cruise, but in a different shade than I'm used to.
That's actually a great point what you said about like being iffy about Tom Cruise being in this, because that was my biggest issue was like, man, this seems like this film's all about Tom Cruise and it's the Tom Cruise vehicle. And while it is that,
I gotta get this pun out of the way right now. This movie, The Mummy, is a lot more of a Frankenstein's monster, because that's how this movie is pieced together. They're like bits and parts that kind of work, but attached to other things that maybe don't, or are distracting and aren't bad on their own, but they're bad in content.
Well, no, what I'm saying though is that Tom Cruise is, even though this is his vehicle, I didn't care about that anymore. Like, when I was watching the film, I was enjoying him the most, and I was on board for who this Nick character was. Like, he kind of reminded me of Nathan Drake from Uncharted. And I kept thinking, like, man, why didn't they just get Tom Cruise to play Nathan Drake? Because he seems like a total Nathan Drake type, especially in, like, the first, like, 10, 15 minutes of this movie.
And, I mean, what if The Mummy was Uncharted is the update of at least the 90s version, the late 90s version. I feel like what this movie kind of does, and what I'm willing to watch, I have discovered, is go, what if The Mummy was a Tom Cruise movie? Like, that's what this movie feels like and is a lot of the time. But that kind of works still.
And what I like from him too, Christopher McQuarrie worked on the script for this as well. And Tom Cruise is not really like a funny guy, but he's pretty funny in this movie. There were some solid lines delivery he did where I cracked up. And it's an intentional joke.
There was one joke that is definitely intentional in this movie that got both of us doing like a few rounds of laughter, like laughter shocks. That moment was like one of the best comedic moments I've seen in a long time, because it was one of the few scenes where I was like getting caught up, and I was like, and then when he said it, the joke slipped by me to the point where I caught it on the end. Yeah, it just busted me up. Like,
and we'll go into this in the spoilers. The midpoint of the movie is what lost me. It lost the movie John a little bit later in the film.
Because I had to keep readjusting to stuff, so by that time I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll give this a chance. Gave that shit a chance.
There is that. Yeah.
It's weird.
Because when you go in like 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, it makes... For me, I thought the first half was very enjoyable. Because it's like a solid half of the movie was enjoyable that I was thinking to myself, like, this doesn't deserve a 17%. Because it was such an enjoyable first half.
I can tell where Christopher McQuarrie has been. Because this movie has a quality that Edge of Tomorrow also had for me in a totally different way and with different results. It's like Edge of Tomorrow, I went in being like, this looks like every Tom Cruise sci-fi movie crashed into one. And then part of the great surprise was like, he starts out the movie being completely not Tom Cruise, like out of his element. And in this movie, it's like it started out being like, he's like actually appropriately freaked out by everything. He doesn't get used to things super quickly. Like, and that's a shade of Tom Cruise. Like I said before, I'm not used to seeing as much. And that charmed me a ton.
Oh, totally, yeah, it worked. and seeing the darker elements of it, you know, because I was thinking like that doesn't look like there's gonna be any horror elements in this movie. The first half has some horror elements in it that I thought really worked. And that whole plane sequence that you see in the trailer was fantastic. That was that's a great sequence.
Gorgeous stunt.
You can't deny the film that sequence.
Even the ambulance crash was pretty good. Like that ambulance sequence in the woods is pretty good. And then after that, I was like, well, he's got to hop on a boat. Let's see a boat wreck. Like, because the action stuff is pretty top notch. Like that's the thing is Tom Cruise does bring his performance commitment, and he also brings killer production quality on the stunts. You know?
Oh, totally.
And that helps this movie out.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely flaws within the first half as well, but I just think it's enjoyable the first half. You know?
The first half charms you in a way you're not expecting by being neither of the movies you expected out of this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a Universal monster movie like you remember, but at the same time, it's not
just a typical action adventure film.
Yeah, and it takes off running too, so it kind of walks at a brisk enough pace to sort of start convincing you of things.
But, you know, there's things off within the first half, you know, like they have this huge Mummy prologue that the 90s movies did too. It just didn't fit. Even though it happened so early in the film, it doesn't mesh well. And the thing with,
you mean the actual, like, with all the gold lighting. Like, the actual movie. Yeah, it feels like it wants to be out of a completely other movie.
I was thinking, like, this movie would have been more interesting if they cut out the whole prologue. Because the thing with the prologue, with the mummy and everything, like, explaining who she is, they keep repeating the damn thing throughout the movie. They just keep repeating what went on, what she wants. It's like I felt like the writing treated it like maybe the audience is gonna forget what this is all about. So let's just remind them every every 15-20 minutes. We're gonna remind you guys about what's going on. This would have been way more interesting if it just started off Tom Cruise, Jake Johnson, they find this tomb, and then what's going on? And you're as the audience going, what's going on? But as a person who just saw this whole prologue, you're like, well, let's hurry up and get the mummy out of the damn coffin. Like, that's what I started feeling like.
Well, the movie begins on a note that pretty soon you realize is only there to make you remember a plot element for later. Like, it's not cleverly blended in. And then you get that ominous intro. It's been a while since I felt like a movie didn't give me much credit for remembering things. And really, like, you pointed out universe building. And I wasn't thinking about it much during the experience of the film, to be fair. But now that we're talking about it, I'm like, they do take a minute to be like, this is what the story's about, every 20 minutes. And so I'm like, I can tell you guys want me to remember, but
for the future installments and shit too.
Yeah, and it kills the momentum of the movie they're making right now, which is what's important, because the thing is, the movie has horror elements to it. It's like spooky. It's creepy-ish. I think the Brendan Fraser one is actually more scary because they go one step further with like the body horror thing. Yeah. This movie does like
just way better overall.
It's just more of a complete movie because this one has like some cool gross things, like some cool macabre. She has these ghoul minions and stuff that are like kind of neat, sort of, if you like that effect.
Non-spoiler still. The last half of the movie that's what really lost me. I mean, that's when you start getting really into universe building, and it kind of upset me at one point because we watched this IGN video with director Alex Kurtzman of The Mummy, where he talks so much about like, what makes a good movie work is if you just focus on the movie and you don't really work, like down the road, maybe we'll focus more on universe building.
I tend to feel like the best way to build a universe is to deliver individual, satisfying films. And if the audiences like those films, the universe will begin to build itself.
And then when I watched the movie, I was like, what bullshit that is. There's so much universe building in this movie.
Well, and the movie does that with a lot of things.
There's like unnecessary stuff in it. You know, I feel like this is fine to say in a non-spoiler because in the trailer they show you that Russell Crowe is Dr. Jekyll, and they show you in a trailer when he's all hided out. Yeah. So the trailer's already ruined that he does have a Hyde scene in here, and the whole Hyde stuff it's done in a way where like if you don't know who Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is, they're giving a lot of time to this, and you're still, if you don't know who Jekyll and Hyde is, you're like, I don't know what the hell's going on. So it's intentionally meant for people who know who Jekyll and Hyde are. And it's unnecessary, a lot of that stuff. I don't know, it starts to slow down a lot in the last half, like the beginning of the last half, as they start explaining what that's the thing. The whole point of Jekyll being there is we got to explain the world that will connect to all future installments.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, he talked a lot about, like, things being essential to the story, and most of these new things they added don't feel that way.
No.
Because, like, I liked Russell Crowe's performance as both Jekyll and Hyde. Like, I thought he was a cool... I don't know if that's a spoiler, but, like, technically. But I thought he was good, and I even liked the concept of Prodigium, but it seemed like they lost it in just kind of beating info into
it was just like, wow.
And, like, with the
no more... It started losing any life. That was the problem for me there, was that it started losing a lot of soul.
And focus. Because that's the thing about some of that extra stuff that isn't Mummy related, is the movie will take time out of the Mummy story and dedicate it to that, and then forget how time moves in the actual story, and then things stop making sense, and then the stakes go down.
Yeah.
It's like, if I know something you're trying to do to stop this, the time doesn't apply, then I'm not invested in it anymore. There's no tension.
And it does have, like, X-Men Apocalypse shit in there.
Yeah, it's
just, you know, it's weird stuff that John and I just had to question it when it happened. Like, it might seem like just a nitpick. You know, in the trailer when they show you, like, it looks like sand, but when Tom Cruise and the chick are running, and then there's glass, like, everything's exploding. All that stuff is made up of glass, and it's just exploding from buildings onto people.
I'm like, how is nobody...
How is no one cut?
How is this not so gory?
Yeah.
How is this not disgusting to look at? Or at least, like, icky painful, you know? Like, if you look at any movie where somebody has to step on glass or, like, touch it, it's in their hands, just that alone is terrifying. And that's a moment where this movie cops out on being a horror movie to be an action movie.
Yeah. The last half, when they start introducing all the universe building stuff, it takes away its focus from its main plot, which was interesting enough and had me on board. The whole first half had me on board. I'm like, I'm going to be able to sit through this. This is not a problem.
I don't know everything, and this movie pleasantly kind of proved that to me, because they took a direction that I wasn't expecting, and that was actually pretty fun. You know, like, when it got to be its own thing for a while.
Oh, no, I get that. And I'm saying that, like, the last half, though, it totally derives focus from from all that. And then by the time they're trying to get back to the focus of the main plot, it's like, nah, my mind's just, like, not interested anymore.
Yeah.
And the last 10 minutes of this movie is just not... Like, people were laughing at serious shit. Like, serious dialogue that's supposed to have its impactful moment. People started laughing because everyone was just like, this is just ridiculous. This is stupid.
Yeah, because, again, like,
bad ending.
You gotta be...
bad ending.
You have to be a real movie and win us back in there. Because the thing is, maybe it's just my viewing experience, but the movie partly won me over so much based on the charm and humor. And if you tried to sell me The Mummy based on charm and humor before, I wouldn't have been that interested. But that won me. And even stuff they ape from other movies. Like, there's an American Werewolf in London thing that happens that partway in I thought was pretty fun.
I liked it.
You know,
I liked it.
At a certain point, it sold that interesting thing away to be its dark ending, and, like, it didn't ever earn you back. So when you get used to not taking much seriously, and that's what makes this movie work, and then they get serious.
And, like, character arc stuff that is so expositional. Like, there's a line said in the first, like, 15 minutes of this film to Nick, Tom Cruise's character. And I said to John, I was like, oh, this means what his arc is gonna, like, I just said it out loud. You mean by the end of this movie, he's gonna be like this?
And there's evil in you.
It's like, and that's another thing with the IGN part, is Alex Kurtzman went in there saying, like, you know, what makes these movies work is strong character.
Those original monster films were character films, and they were played by movie stars who imbued those monsters with a heartbreak and an agony and a pathos and an emotion that I think is so specific to the Universal monsters.
And I watched this movie, I'm like, you don't have that. You don't have character in this movie.
Because the problem is, too, if you're talking about strong characters and you said good actors to play the monsters and to give them life and to make you be afraid for them just as much as you're afraid of them. And the thing is, I like Sofia Boutella a lot in this movie, even. I like her every time I've seen her. Like, this is only, like, the third thing. I thought she was cool. The problem is they didn't take advantage of her hardly at all.
No.
Like, they took time away from her to do their universe building shit, and I'm like, all that I know about her, she's kind of angry and she wants this dagger.
And
I don't fear for her.
And no matter how many times they repeated the plot point of it, I just kept going, wait, why does she want to destroy the world? Like, I don't know, it just didn't make sense.
If you go back and watch the 99 Mummy,
yeah,
what you'll notice, I think, I mean, that movie's got, you know, seams on it, but they take a good amount of time to be like, Imhotep, this is what this guy's about, here's what happened to him, you understand why he might be bitter. This one just doesn't do that, and it doesn't give her any dimension, you know. No, it just makes her a big bad.
It's telling you, it's because of the midpoint that ruins the whole entirety of the film's effect. It's building her up throughout in the first half, like, okay, I get it, Tom Cruise good guy, Mummy bad, and then after a while you're like, nah, there's more to think about now.
I guess that's why I stayed on longer than maybe you did, because every time something new happened, because new things kept happening, so even new stuff I wasn't that excited to see, I was still like, well, this seems like it's building to something and it might pay off.
Nah.
But so little of it actually does pay off, and the payoff, the finale, the climax of the movie, the big moment that you gotta do the title its justice for, it kind of fizzles, you know? It doesn't leave an impact much one way or the other.
It was an annoying ending. It was an annoying ending to me.
There's a lot that's annoying.
Because it
has so much potential. I even partway through was like, I could see how this dark universe could work, and even leaving it now, as much as we've nitpicked,
I think you could fix it. I think any future installment you could fix it.
And I think they would be smart not to pull the plug if this doesn't do well, because it's like they've already talked about, Bill Condon, and he's gonna do a different thing, and they're smart enough now to know, we've learned with all these other movies that for better or worse, they pay attention to the thing because they want their universe to work. And the thing about the Universal Monsters is they can still,
you know, I never want a movie to be a financial failure. Like, if it gets terrible reviews, like, I'm like, all right, the movie sucks in a lot of ways probably, but I never wish that a movie fails at the box office. I'm like, that's a lot of people that worked on it. That's a lot of money. Even if like, I don't like BVS, but hell, I'm hoping that it makes its money back.
Earn your budget.
Yeah, like, I would like you to still make your money back. That would just make me sad. And I feel the same way about this movie. I'm like, I'm hoping it at least makes its money back, so that way we could get a future installment of another Dark Universe character, and they could do it right and listen to all the internet feedback in the world and try to make it better film.
Yeah, I never get happy about the idea. Even a movie I don't like or think is deplorable, you know, like, I think, you know, people worked hard. I do think they can fix this, because some franchises I'm like, I don't think you need to be here, but this is like, they have an incredible opportunity with this.
Right.
And they have something that they've tried a couple times, it hasn't worked yet, but I think they can crack it still, because the thing about this movie is, as much as it makes me worried for them, it also proves that they at least got some interesting ideas going. Like, Prodigium is not insalvageable. Like, that could work next time. And I could even see them changing up some things about Tom Cruise, like waiting to do a Mummy 2 and making that a little bit better. I can't imagine any of these right now. This doesn't give me faith for a lot of it. I don't feel like this is spiritually in line, you know, because he talks. Alex Kurtzman talked all that game in the video, in that interview, and he's very articulate about it. He sounded very passionate, or at least very thorough. And it doesn't match that. I can't tell if he's either that's just his version of what all that sounds like, and it's just not on point, or if somebody got in the way, or what. It calls everything into question now. And the thing is, they released that video this week, right? It seems like they already maybe know what people want to hear.
Yeah.
Which is awkward, because the Mummy doesn't match, so I don't know what the score is right now, but there's still a glimmer of hope.
Alright, well, hey, I would give this movie, you know, I know we give stupid ratings all the time, but to make it clear, I'll go with, we'll just keep changing our rating system like we do. I'm going to do I would do like a 38%, yeah. I would say like this was a 38%.
I'll give it a 43, because Jake Johnson, just because it's
Really?
been a while
Kind of
since I've
annoyed
seen
me.
it. He annoyed me a little bit too. I didn't think they gave him very good. I didn't think they wrote for him very
lines
well.
were bad. He
Yeah.
had bad lines, yeah.
I thought to me, and this might just be because I like him, generally when he shows up, but he elevated that to me, those lines, because there were times where I was like, no, it's not your delivery, really. They just repeated the same line again, as if that was a joke.
Alright guys, we can check out our spoiler review for The Mummy on a separate video. If you're new to the channel, you can subscribe today, become a part of the Reject Nation, click that notification bell, John Humphrey on Twitter and Instagram, social media manager at Blumhouse, and go check out our Patreon. A lot of exclusive fun content on there and perks and all that shit.